welcome to season 2 of Ask the Expert, the show that is hosted by my co-host Teresa Ream, myself, Patty Farmer, and we're looking forward to sharing today's expert with you. And we encourage you to not just connect with her after the show, but to take action in your business on the expertise that she is going to share. So make sure you have a pen and paper, because she's going to say some writer downers, as I like to call them. And we just want to make sure that you can implement some of that in your business. What's that takeaway that could really help you to gain momentum and move you forward in your business? So before we get started, I'd also like to thank our sponsor, the Professional Women's Network of Monterey. You can learn more about them at pwnmonterey.org. So Teresa, tell everybody a little bit about our guest.
Yes, thank you. Today, I am just thrilled to start season 2, and we have the perfect person for you today for our kickoff. And today we will be talking about how to coach and persuade people to choose you. So let's get to reading this bio. I'm so excited to get this started. Jana Sanchez is a seasoned communication consultant who is a trusted advisor to senior executives, high-profile authors, and entrepreneurs across Europe and the U.S. She helps leaders define and amplify their personal brands. She is valued for her ability to coach leaders and companies to communicate persuasively and to control their own narrative in all their communications, written and spoken. Jana is noted for being able to help others see and harness their own strengths and to bring that into their story to their benefit. She is able to synthesize complex or nuanced information into compelling prose. Jana has demonstrated ability to envision, launch, and grow new projects, business, and concepts across the geographies and sectors, and works with those who are focused on making the world a better place. Very important to Jana. Jana
I love
her
that.
Message skills first as a journalist working for Reuters and others, and then later to public relations. She was the co-author of a corporate and financial co-founder of a corporate and financial PR agency with offices in London, Amsterdam, and New York, and a former candidate for U.S. Congress. Welcome. We are so glad that you are here joining us.
Thank you so much, Teresa, and thank you, Patty, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to all of your wonderful viewers and listeners today. I'm really excited to be here. I think that you heard a little bit in my bio that I have a long history in corporate communications, essentially, mainly helping companies communicate. But I figured out a little while ago that the same principles that apply to corporate communications actually apply to a person's personal branding and how they talk about themselves. So often we don't actually use what we already know about communications. When someone says, "So tell me about yourself, what do you do?" We usually give a long list of things that we do, or give a chronological recount of our career, sometimes an internal title, things that really don't matter to the person. So what I do is I help people quantify and articulate the value that they bring. So that can be an entrepreneur, that can be a professional. Often it's an executive at a corporation who wants to rise up the ladder. It can be someone who's looking for a new position. And I help them figure out how to articulate their value, how to prove their value, and how to keep people focused on their value in a conversation. I have to say, it's things that people already know how to do, but following my process which anyone can do, you don't even have to have me to do it, but I hope that I'm valuable. You will be able to persuade others to think, feel, and do what you want them to do when it comes to how they respond to you. So thank you.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Thank you for kind of diving into that a little bit deeper for us and stuff. Yeah. So let's jump into the questions. So the first thing, which maybe you kind of answered already, which is, what's the number one thing that differentiates you from others in your industry?
I think that, first of all, I don't see a lot of people doing what I'm actually doing. I think there are some career coaches who help people write resumes, and there are leadership coaches who take on a broad number of issues. I'm squarely focused on how you communicate. So how you communicate powerfully. And it's really a process that I've synthesized into a formula that anyone can use, and that once you know it and once you use it, it's very powerful. So that's really, I don't really see anyone doing exactly what I do. I've talked to quite a number of people because I'm always interested when someone says, oh, I do this or I do that. And I try to find out what they're doing and how they're doing it differently. And I haven't seen anyone doing exactly what I'm doing.
Well, that's always really nice. Although I have to say that that puts you in a very unique situation. And
Yeah.
that also, when you do overlap with people a little bit, those are usually your best collaboration partners. There's always, great things that you can do with them. So I always look for that, where
Yes.
some people kind of stay away from that. They're like, oh, you kind of
Oh,
overlap with me. I think it's a wonderful thing because our audiences are similar. We just serve them in a different way. So
yeah.
I think that says a lot about whether somebody comes from abundance or scarcity, right? So I really love that.
I'm definitely a believer in abundance. I work often with executive coaches who are coaching very high level executives who really are probably already at the CFO or COO level and want to be CEOs. And they're helping them perform better in their job. And usually they will call me in and say, can you help this person just be a little bit more clear about the value that they bring? And I work through my process with them. And I love that. It's really fun.
Well, I
Yes,
love it
I
because
loved what
it segues right into our second question. But Teresa, did you want to add to that before we
Yes,
do?
I loved what you did. I was her guinea pig in one of her trainings for her Amsterdam team, and it was such an eye opener. It was quick. I love the quick. It was quick. We got down to it. We got into my key messages, my proof points, sound bites. There was a whole articulated journey on this adventure. And I told Jan, I said, anytime you need a guinea pig, please call me, because it was, she was on fire, and it had that vibe that was just, exciting.
Thank you. I mean, really, that's why I say anyone can do this. I mean, I don't think anyone does do this other than me, but I think anyone can do it, because all of the things that we use are just part of normal communications. It's really taking the time to pull out and really simplify what the value you bring is, because most of us in our careers don't have that opportunity. People often say to me after their first session, this was the best hour I've ever spent on myself, because you don't usually get a chance to sit and talk about how great, with somebody feeding back to you and saying, is this right? Is this what you mean? And so that you get it really right. And like, it really takes an hour to just simplify your value into 3 key messages. And we usually, hour and a half really, but the one session, you can usually get it.
Well, that's great. Okay, so because we've been already talking about the value you bring to the marketplace, we're going to go right there.
Yeah.
So this should be super simple for you. We've been talking about controlling the narrative, so I think it's important. But could you share with us 3 to 5 words that would best describe the value you bring to the marketplace? So just 3 to 5 words.
I help leaders articulate their value. Is that what you mean? That sort of thing?
That'll work. Perfect. That'll work. It could be one, like sometimes people will just give us, words, but hey, you nailed it. It was beautiful. And I love it. Right?
Okay,
Would
great.
you say, Teresa, that she nailed it perfectly?
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Great.
Okay, great.
You're really challenging me today.
Oh, down. So as an expert, right? This is Ask the Expert. So as an expert, what is the best testimonial you've ever received from a client?
I love it. I've had this 3 times recently where somebody has sent me a note saying, I got the job, or I got the promotion. I was elected to the board. And I love that. That is just, I literally have chill bumps when I read that. It's like so amazing, because that was the purpose. That's why we engaged in the process. They embraced it, and it really worked. And often times people are a little bit skeptical in the beginning because they're kind of like, oh, I hired someone to write my resume. I spent $2,000 and it's not any better than it was. And is it right? So people often come to me when they've really spent a lot of time and money doing something else that didn't help them get there. So I love that feedback. It's my favorite thing, of course. So.
Of course. And I think that, you know, as a marketing strategist and coach, I find that when we get that feedback, it's so important, because one of the things my clients ask me all the time is like, oh, Patty, they're writing their messaging, or, you know, even whether it's in their social or whatever. And they're like, I just don't know. And I always want to say, well, look at these three places. Look at the testimonials that you're getting from your clients. Look at the recommendations on LinkedIn. See the pattern there of the words that people are using. If you have a podcast, look at your reviews, right? See what the pattern of the words they're using. And now when you're crafting your message, whether it's a speech, whether it's website copy, whatever the case may be, using the words that people who are going to hire you use, like you're halfway there, right? You know, so really being able to nail those words is very, very important. And testimonials like really are like story gold.
I think it's, well, especially because what I do doesn't exist, so to speak. I'm not out there competing with other people doing it, because as far as I know, no one else is doing it. So that also means no one knows they need it. So the only way I get clients is through referral. Every single client I've ever gotten has been a referral. Now, sometimes people I've worked with have brought me in to work with their whole team, which is, I think, the best referral ever.
Absolutely.
But I can't, no one knows they need me. So other than referrals, I don't have any other way of really people to know what I do. So it's super important to me that people are successful because they refer other people to me.
Yes,
which is what's great about being on podcasts, right, Teresa?
Yes,
being on podcasts, you get a chance to share.
And one of your superpowers is that you drill down and you look at us, especially for women. It's hard for us to write all these great things we are down.
Oh, it's so hard.
Other women, they are like a reflection of us, giving it back, and we need that. And that's what you truly bring to it.
Well, thank you, by the way. But I think for women, I find women are really a unique challenge, especially, well, I say European women are even more of a challenge than American women, because there's this continuum. They say men only have to fulfill 60% of qualifications for a job before they will apply, and women won't apply unless they fulfill 100% of qualifications. So women really want to be 100% certain, right? But also I find women are not as good as accepting credit and accepting praise as men are. So they often feel very uncomfortable about putting down on paper the why, what is my value? Why do I do what I do? And then more importantly, actually, is that they really struggle to say it. So even if we do get it down on paper, I have to work with them to make sure that they'll actually use those words. Women often feel they need a lot more proof, that they have to demonstrate something with lots of data. And what they really need to do is say, this is what I'm really good at. And this is why you need me. But then the proof comes, of course, I have a coffee mug that says, nice story, now show me the data. But it's really, you do have to back it up, right? But you've got to start with telling people why what you do is important. And women really struggle with this more than men do. A lot of people do, but women struggle more, I think.
I think it's kind of like, the cliche that says, build it and they will come. It's like, yeah, that's true. But first they have to know you built it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really important. But, based on what you're saying right there about women not being able to say it unless they have, 100%, I have to tell you, if there's anybody who is literally the total opposite of that, that would have to be Teresa. Because I got to tell you, if you ever get a chance to hear the story, and so for the audience out there, you're going to have to get with her to have her tell you the story. I think it might show up in a book. But with that said, she has the most unique, amazing story about exactly how she did that, literally at probably like 25%. What would you say, Teresa? Like, some of those times when you were when they would ask you that and you say, oh yeah, and then tomorrow you'd have a business with that, right? You know, little sneak peek there. Like you
I know
had
what you're
no
talking
problem.
about.
She is bold and controls the narrative as well.
Just
Very,
jump
very
right
good
in.
at that. That is Teresa. Like if I was going to say a word about her, bold would definitely be one of those words for sure.
Thank you, Patty.
Well, Teresa's always 100%. That's, you can always say that about Teresa. She's 100%. She's firing on all cylinders. She's doing everything. She's amazing. She's so valuable. But you know, and sometimes we have to be reminded about that value in terms of how it sounds to other people, because you might be tempted to just talk about one thing that you did without putting it into context for your, like you said, your superpower. Like, what is it that I'm always good at? What is it that I always help people do? And just being able to articulate that and being able to use it is very important. As Teresa knows, some of the work that I do, or a key part of the work I do, is also in helping people keep the conversation focused on the things that you need them to know and to think about. And the reason this is so important has to do with hierarchy. We need to flatten the hierarchy between the person asking the question or offering the position or offering the contract and you. And you do that by always pivoting back to what you need them to know. And I think that's very hard for most people, because we're brought up from a very young age. We're told to answer the question fully and completely. And so this starts from, you know, your dad saying, who broke my thingamajiggy? And, you know, you stand there and you think, okay, am I going to blame this on my little brother, or am I going to answer it? But you're going to answer it, right? You're going to answer that question. And it goes through everything from, you know, teachers, professors, job, you know, HR managers interviewing you for your job. You just blindly answer questions. So I do a lot of work to help people always bridge back to what's important. And that's not only about you, it can also be about a project that you're focused on, a product that you're selling. It can be anything that you really need to have them focus on. And there's a process to it, and it's hard, but it is definitely learnable.
Absolutely. And that again is to me, is really part of controlling the narrative. I think when you're a speaker or you're on podcasts, sometimes I ask you the question and you're thinking, why in the world, like how they did the question. You just have to make sure you know how to control the narrative and change the question to be the question you know is the one that you actually really need to ask, right? You know, you can't say, well, what you meant to ask me is, however, there are like subtle ways to do it. And that is an art and a science.
And Jana trains you on that too. She says, she throws questions out and then she'll say, no, don't. And she'll go back to, what about you? What's your narrative?
Well,
I think it is really, really important. So would you be able to share, because we want everybody to get lots and lots of value, right? So could you share with us either a favorite business tip or a resource? Because I've got to tell you, I'm thinking that what I'm hearing you talk about just so far, you have to have some really good, juicy resources, I'm sure. So
I'm going to share a tip. Okay.
Okay.
So, you know how if you give someone three things, and I know you, Patty, are a fan of the power of three, right? Three things, people can comprehend them, people can remember them. So when you're thinking of your messages, you write down three of the top value, the reason that you're so valuable, three of these, and you always come back to three in any conversation. Now I put those in a matrix. I have three messages, 3 proof points per message. And then I would always, and you might have 6 total messages, but you're just, oh, there's her message matrix. That's great. But you always come back to 3 in any conversation. The reason that's important is because, first of all, it makes you look organized. People can follow you. If you say, there are 3 things I want you to know. The first is blah, blah, blah. The second is blah, blah, blah. And the third is blah, blah, blah. That person is probably writing down 1, 2, 3. So you've already started the meeting out with 3 points that the person is going to naturally have questions about, right? And also don't overwhelm people with data. So it's really about keeping it organized, organizing it in the first place, and keeping it organized. And that is true for how you talk about yourself, but it's also true for anything that you want people to do something with, or think, feel, act. you want to give them 3 things and signpost it for them. Say first, second, and third, because that helps them follow along with you. And I think you said something I just want to go back to quickly, because I think this is another important tip. Don't forget that people often haven't thought out their questions. You have, obviously, you're a professional, you worked out your questions in advance, but a lot of people come into a meeting and they haven't really thought about what they need to know from you. So you can tell them, this is what you need to know. So you start the conversation with your pitch that has the 3 things in it. That's the heart of the pitch. I can give you the rest if you want. There's a template I use. But then you start it out and you keep them focused on what you need them to do. And then you bridge each question back to one of those 3 points.
That is perfect, because I think that 3 things are pretty much what most people can remember too.
That's it.
Right?
Yes.
You know, you can have 7 great points, and if number 6 is the best one, well, they forgot by the time they got there, right? 3. That's why
Absolutely.
everything I do is marketing, media, and money. Everything
Yes.
I do is 3.
Yes.
Like
Always.
3.
Yes.
Always. It's
very
just
persuasive. Yes.
And even
Yes.
when you think about it, when you had kids, I remember, well, I still have them, but I mean, I remember when they were younger, I found that when I gave them a task or 2 and I would tell them, like, they wouldn't always get them done. And I learned pretty early on that if I would give them 3 things and I said, what did I just tell you to do? And then they could repeat back those 3 things. It was like 90% chance that they were going to get them done. If I gave them 5 things, 2 would not get done, right? You know, because 3 is just a really good number.
Yeah. In fact, there's been studies that have shown that if I take 3 balls and I throw them on the table, you don't even have to stop and count. You know there are 3. But if I throw 5 balls on the table, you have to stop and count them. And you also won't remember, 5 or 6 or 7 things. You're just going to edit it. Like the person listening is going to edit it. So do the editing in advance and help them figure out what the most important 3 things are. Helps you.
And not only that, but the things they edit might be the things you most want them to have. Like you can't control what the editing is going to be. So by keeping it shorter and concise, like now you are again making sure that they're getting the parts about you that you actually want them to know. So that is a really great tip. So Jana, what do you?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You want to add on?
I was just saying, really smart people tend to want to overwhelm people with data because they think data is persuasive, but data is not persuasive. What's persuasive is that people have to understand why it matters. And then the data simply backs that up. And so edit that first in your mind, make sure people know why, and then you can give them the data. Each question, you can give them more data.
Yes,
absolutely.
That's so true, because a lot of times what I feel like, people use so many words that they feel like they're sticking to me. And I have to actually go and kind of, bring it down a little. So I like it when the three, it keeps it simple and you're not overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And even when you're doing like an elevator pitch or something like that, I always tell my clients it should never be more than 20. 15 is perfect, because anything more than that, they're doing strikeouts of what they're listening to, and you don't want them to strike out a word that is absolutely what you wanted them to get. So if you can, you don't need to tell them all of these things. You just want them to say, oh, tell me more. That's all you really want.
Absolutely.
Tell me more.
Totally agree. Tell me more. Totally agree.
That is like the key thing. So Jana, what do you love right now about your business?
I love the fabulous, successful people that I'm helping be even more successful. I mean, my clients are just amazing and I love connecting with them. I love seeing their success. I guess this process would work with any level of person, any level of success, but I've been very blessed to work with very successful people who are super smart, super knowledgeable, and just great to work with. I work with a lot of senior executives, very high level academics is another field of mine as well, and entrepreneurs who are so impressive. I mean, I just love how impressive they are, and I learned something from them, which is great.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It is.
So how can our audience connect with you? Can you tell us like your website and what's the social media platform you're the most active on?
Okay, so the website, I work for Leadership Forum, which is executive leadership coaching, and that's leadership-forum.com. And under the About section, I have a bio, and you can even make an appointment just to chat with me and see if I can help you or not on there. These days, I'm most active on LinkedIn, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just send me a friend request or a connection request.
That is perfect. And I did that, so I love it. So Teresa, what time is it?
You know what time it is, Patty. It's time for our lightning round. And this is where our experts answer questions with a brief 15-second short and sweet answer.
Okay.
Woo! So let's get started.
I'll stay focused.
Jana, what is the one thing on your bucket list that you haven't accomplished yet?
My backyard. I need to build paths. Did you mean professionally?
Whatever
Either or.
like, whatever you would like.
My backyard. I'm building paths and it's hard.
Yes, backyards can be a little tricky. Yes. What is your favorite go-to productivity hack?
Oh, keep narrowing it down to 3 things. Like, I start with my list of the day, but I'm probably not going to get all of them done. So I just pick the top 3. 3 is always the magic number, right?
Nice. And one more. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I would love to actually know what people are thinking. I mean, you probably wouldn't always want to know that, but I'd like to know a little bit more whether I'm correct in what I think people are thinking or not. So I'd like to read minds.
I don't think I've ever heard that one. That could be scary though.
Could be
Oh
scary.
my gosh,
Yeah.
This has been so fun. And I want to thank you so much, Jana, for coming on and having this time with us and sharing with our audience and for playing and joining Patty and I in today's episode. So Patty.
Thank you, women.
Thank you so much. I have to tell you, this was really great. I really appreciate you coming on the show today, and we appreciate you sharing your expertise and your experiences with us as well. So I have really, really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And to our audience, thank you for joining us on Ask the Expert. Feel free to reach out to Teresa and or myself if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes. We love hearing from our listeners and would love to connect and continue the conversation. So we'll see you on the next episode of Ask the Expert. In the meantime, have a phenomenal, productive, and profitable day.